Good afternoon, I'm here. Can you see me?
Perfect.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can see you. I can hear you. How you doing?
Awesome. Yeah, good. Thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad at all. So we're ready to kick things off.
Okay, no worries. You just caught me on the hop there. I've been sat here for a while, and now you just completely caught me on the hop. Bear with me a second. I'm going to try and that's better. So my camera's on widescreen now, so everybody can see and hear me. So awesome. So yeah. So am I ready to go then, Joshua? Yeah, just go into it.
What I'm going to do is leave you to get into it. People have seen enough of me. I'll turn my screen off, mute my mic just to give the best possible
before
connection.
You go, just remind me where this is being streamed so I can just put it on my iPad in front of me so I can see what's going on.
Yeah, so it's live onto YouTube, and it's again on Facebook. So we've got the Property Conference Facebook group. That's where most questions are coming from. So the Property Conference Facebook group, you'll see the live stream in there.
Okay, cool. I'm going to open that up just so I can see what's going on. I'd like to see what's going on around me. Here we go.
There's about a 20-second delay.
Okay, that's cool. No worries. I'm in there. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen if that's all right. And thank you everyone for tuning in today. So my name's Rick Gannon and I'm the founder of Go Tenant property management software. I'm also a very active HMO landlord, and I've got about 150 HMO units. We've got pubs, service accommodation units, 25 single lets, and what else have we got? A couple of holiday units as well. So a very diverse portfolio. So what I'm going to do today is talk to you about the importance of property systems and why I think you should get systems in your portfolio now, especially when we're on lockdown. And then the second half of my presentation is about how you can protect your rents within your portfolio during COVID and the systems that we've got in place that we use in order to make sure that we protect our rent roll right now. So a bit of a two-part presentation. Right, so I am just going to start my slides, folks. So if you just bear with me 1 second, we're going to share the screen from that one. Right, we should be getting my, my slides up anytime. Here we go. Are we seeing my slides? I'm not sure if that's sharing or not. That should be seeing my slide. That should be okay. So, right, yeah. So this is my story about Go Tenant. A long time ago, I was at a property whereby, bear with me a second. Have you got my slides? Yeah, you've got my slides. That's cool. I was at a property. Now, I was doing a rent to rent. I had about 50 units at this point, and when I got to 50 units, I was still doing everything that everybody tells you not to. So I was up this ladder at half term. I had my kids with me. My dog was with me trying to jump through the window to get to the next door neighbor's cat. I had my, the kids were like eating Kentucky Fried Chicken and trying to throw chicken wings at each other and all sorts of you know, weird and wonderful things. So I was like, I had this big paint tub and I was splashing the magnolia on over wood chip wallpaper. We were doing everything that we tell you not to do now. And my phone was ringing, and my phone was ringing with tenant prospects for that house because I'd already advertised it on Spare Room and I was already marketing the premises. Now, what was happening was I'm an ex-cop, okay? So that's when everyone's gonna leave now. I'm an ex-police officer. And because I've never really been used to systems before, I had nothing in place at all. So people were calling me and I was either not answering my phone or answering it and saying, yeah, I'll get back to you, because I had a cheese sandwich in one hand and, you know, a paintbrush with magnolia paint in the other. And what was happening was I wasn't getting back to the tenants, or when I did get back to them, it was too late and they'd found another room. So I very quickly realized that I needed some kind of systems. I needed systems in place that I wanted, you know, to help me out throughout all of this. I really wanted something that would link to an electronic diary. I didn't have a diary at the time. I had a Filofax. Does anybody still use Filofax? I don't know. I didn't have anything at all. So I wanted something that would link to an electronic diary, would link to something that could make appointments. And I had all of these ideas in my head that I wanted to go paperless. I wanted to take remote viewings, and I wanted to form some kind of pre-qualification questionnaire. So tell me, folks, in the comments, all right, let's keep this interactive. how many of you that are in property at the moment actually go and do a viewing, and then when you get to the property, you actually realize that they're not suitable? So you've wasted all of the time on going to the property, waiting for them if they turned up, and then realizing they weren't suitable, but showing them around the house anyway, just out of courtesy. And then, you know that they're not suitable because you can tell. So how many people do that? Let me know. Let me know in the comments how many people actually do that. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to flip this, and I wanted to do all of the due diligence actually upon the application stage before we get to the property to do the viewing, because it was just so much of a waste of the time. And then I wanted something that would dismiss any of the prospects before we had the conversation to say that they weren't suitable, because again, that's a really awkward conversation to have. I'm sorry, you're not suitable. Why? Well, you're just not. Well, what's wrong with me? Are you discriminating against me? So I wanted something that I could just click a button and then just eliminate the tenants. So the other element was we were getting to viewings and tenants just weren't showing up. So I wanted something that would text the tenant about an hour before, maybe 2 hours, that would remind them that they've got a viewing, and then allow the tenant to confirm. And if the tenant didn't confirm, I wanted them to cancel the viewing for me. I wanted so much. And then of course I wanted to go paperless. So all of the contracts and everything else. So I needed all of that, but I also needed a really good property management system, something that would look after the properties and all of the safety certificates and all of the maintenance and everything else. So pretty much I wanted utopia. I wanted something that really didn't exist. So I went and I researched the market, and there were the likes of Arthur and Landlord Vision. They were just being born, and they did some of this, but they didn't do all of it. So I just sort of kept on researching the market, and there was nothing there. So I decided to do what any self-respecting business person would do, and I decided to create my own. So over the next 6 months or so, I just went onto the internet and I found a load of third-party based systems that I could clunk together and create a system that actually worked for my business. So I went on to DocuSign. You may have heard of some of these. And I went on to FormSite, and I went on to Simply Book Me. And you can still use these, folks. Some great systems there if you just want standalone systems. And I put all of these pieces together, and I created this really rudimentary system for my business. Now, I was super pleased with this. I wanted to, to create this, and I did, but it was all clunky because it was all linked together through the back end, and I'm not a software developer. So I put this into my business, and I think in the first week, it reduced my viewings by about 80%. It reduced them. And I thought, oh my God, I've ruined my business. I've destroyed my business. What am I going to do? But then quickly, after a couple of weeks, I realized that the tenants that weren't booking viewings, I didn't want them anyway. And it was only leaving the very best tenants for me to go ahead and take on into my properties. So that element actually worked, because the tenant prospects were weeding themselves out naturally, because we sent them this getting to know you form, this pre-qualification form. So it left us with the 20% of the very best tenants, which then safeguarded our business moving forwards. Now, the power of this, folks, I used to do all my viewings myself, as everybody does at some point, and it was a Sunday morning, and I had a viewing which was about 5 miles away. So I went to the property and saw the tenant. He was great. He wanted to take the room. Now, remember before, we'd have to give all of the paperwork to them. We'd have to either wait there for them to fill it out, or they'd take it away, and then they would give it back to us, or they would send it in the post, and it would take weeks sometimes. Then you've got to wait for referencing, and then you've got to wait for all of that to come back. And that would take a long time, yeah? And then we've all been there. So I was at this property, right? And I gave the tenant prospect a link to this new system that I created. And by the time I got home, which was 5 miles, and I got out the car, I literally opened up my phone, and I'd had his reservation form, his application form and both his landlord reference and his employer's reference. And I was like, whoa, that's phenomenal. And that was a real pinnacle moment for me. And I thought, this is good. This is really good. So I used this in my own portfolio for about 4 years, and it worked really well. It's a bit clunky, but it worked really well. And I was paying for the platforms. I didn't own any of them. I was paying for them myself. So after using this for a little while, I was in London and I was presenting on the stage to about 800 people about HMOs, about the strategy and how to do it, how to source them. And I mentioned this system. And then during lunch, I was just swamped with people asking about this system. And I said, look, I can't tell you all now because there's too many. How about I put it in the classroom? So then I developed this thing called the Tenant Systems Day. And I ran this course for about 2 years. And I trained hundreds and hundreds of landlords with these third-party systems. And after one of these training events, I had a phone call. And the phone call went like this. Hi, Rick, it's X. And we came on your Tenant Systems Day last week. And thank you very much. Not really interested, though. I was like, cheers. Thanks a lot. They said, but we're international software developers. And that's what we do. And we'd like to have a chat with you. And can you come to Oxford? So I thought, well, that's interesting. So I said, yeah, sure. So off I went to Oxford a couple of weeks later. And they opened the door into their office. And I walked in. And there was loads of buffet food along the side and all these televisions. And I thought, oh, they're obviously going into a meeting soon, so I'm not going to be here long. And then they came in and we sat down. Then all of these televisions started to come on. Like, and all of these people from Bulgaria started to pop up on the screens. And then I quickly realized that it was actually all for me. So long story short, from that point, they asked me if I would allow them to take my IP and create what I had into our own code and turn it into something that was absolutely mind-blowing and 10 times better than the product we had before. So of course I said yes. And then that turned into what we know now as Go Tenant. So it was my system that I created, only supercharged. And it was just an amazing moment because I created Go Tenant for myself, for my business. I didn't create it to get it out there to the masses. But that in itself is actually a massive point because I created it to plug the gaps into my business and I'm on the coalface. I'm still operational. I'm still out there all the time. I've got 10 staff, but I'm still out there and I still do it. So Go Tenant was the element that I needed to help me get through the self-management aspect that I was struggling with at the time. So what is Go Tenant? Well, Go Tenant is a full tenant paperless onboarding system. So it does all of the things I've just mentioned and a lot more. It's a full property management platform. So it's got two parts. It's a tenant onboarding system, which guides the tenant down a compliance route and helps the landlord down the compliance route. And it doesn't let you do things that you shouldn't be doing without warning you. For example, it will send the government how to rent as a PDF attachment for every tenant that books a viewing. And it pulls that from the government website. So it's always up to date. It will prompt you to send all of the prescribed information, the gas safety, the EPC, and it will ask the tenant to sign for it. And it will give a date stamp and it will give a time stamp and it will give an envelope with the IP address from the property that it was signed with. So you've always got that fantastic audit trail. So if your tenant ever says, I didn't get the EPC, well, I'm sorry, but I can just open my phone now and show you that you got the EPC. So it's fantastic for that. So it does everything, but it's different than the rest of the platforms because it concentrates more on the compliance side of things. So this is a screenshot of Go Tenant. So you can see on here, it provides you with all of we give you a landlord's website. So included with the subscription, you get your own landlord website. And the landlord website allows you to showcase your available properties. And you can put them on very much like you would on Spare Room, and you can put them on your website as well. And what happens is that the tenant prospect will contact you on one of their platforms like spareroom.co.uk. Spare Room don't allow you to put links in, but what Spare Room will do is they'll encourage the tenant prospect to contact you directly. And then in the conversation that we have with them, we give them the link to the Go Tenant website, or you can put it and embed it in your own website as well. So you reply with a link to your website, then the tenant will select their chosen property, and then they'll be invited to book a viewing. And on the viewing, it will link to your diary, your calendar, your online calendar, or your property managers, or a member of your staff. It will link to the online calendar, so it won't allow you to double book. And if you've got a commitment in your diary already, Go Tenant won't allow a tenant to book. So then it will go on to, once they've completed and they've filled out the booking form, it will send them to a getting to know you form. And the getting to know you form is that pre-qualification form that I spoke about earlier. And that's the pre-qualification form that we ask them certain questions. So what I suggest you all do, folks, is even if you don't use any systems, but what we've always done is we've always had a pre-qualification form, and we call this the getting to know you form. And you can ask them anything really, but we really want to know, have they ever been in rent arrears before? Have they ever had any county court judgments? Have they ever been made insolvent? Do they have a criminal record? And anything else you want to ask them. But those are the fundamentals that we ask. Now, I understand that this is self-declaration. I get that. And there's not a lot we can do if they lie, but this is just the first process. And that's what we ask them. And if for whatever reason they lie, that will come out further down the line. So once they've completed that form, Go Tenant will tell you, and you'll have a little notification. You'll see on the top there, next to my face, there's a bell icon. And you'll see there a red dot. And it'll tell you you've got outstanding actions. And the getting to know you form will come back to you. You can open it from your phone or your laptop. And once you've opened it, you can read all of those answers. And if you're not happy with the answers, you can just click on decline. And then the system will just decline the applicant. And there's no phone number. There's nothing they can do to contact you. They're just gone. And that's the beauty of it. So all of these things that I was considering back in the day, they're all starting to come together now within the system. So what will happen then, if you accept the tenant, then they'll get a text message, and then you meet them at the property. Now, 2 hours before, Go Tenant will send them a reminder message. And if they don't reply, then Go Tenant will cancel the viewing for you. But you can change that to an hour, or you can change it to 3 hours. It doesn't matter, but it's all automated. You don't have to do anything at all. So when they do reply, you'll get another message to say that it's been confirmed. So you can turn up, you can go to the property, you can show the tenant around, and then at that point, Go Tenant will prompt you to take the right to rent details. So you can open your phone, and you can open Go Tenant, and you can click on the right to rent form, and then it will upload the right to rent documents directly into the tenant's application. So it's all automated for you, completely paperless. And then once you've done that, then you can then send the tenant a text message through the system with a link to the holding deposit form, and they can pay in front of you using a card, or they can do a bank transfer, whichever they choose. And as soon as they've done that, Go Tenant will say that the room is reserved and you now have a new tenant prospect. Then the Go Tenant system will send a link to the application form. And then the application form, then they'll click on the application form. They can complete it on their phone, or they can complete it at any time within the next 72 hours or so. And on the application form, what will happen is, as soon as they put their details of their current landlord, and as soon as they put their details of their current employer, those people will get a reference request automatically. How cool is that? You don't have to do anything. It does it all for you. It's completely automated. So the tenant then will complete all of that. You get all the referencing back in, and then you can choose to do your own referencing on top of that if you want to. So you can do a county court judgment check. We don't do that because it's just what we don't choose to do in our portfolio. And as soon as you've got all of the information you're happy with, and you're happy with the right to rent documentation, then you can send the AST contract to the tenant via the system. So it's all automated. Now we use Signable, it links together, and it does it all for you. Now, when you send your contracts to the tenant, Signable will also ask you, or sorry, Go Tenant will also ask you to add your EPC and to add your any prescribed information you want to, your EPC, your gas safety certificate, and anything else that you need to send. And it's just by the click of a button, you select the documentation that you want to send with it, that you've already uploaded, and then Go Tenant will send it along with the AST contract. So it's absolutely 100% paperless, and it's so easy just by the click of a button. So as soon as all parties have signed, Go Tenant will then invite you to check to make sure that everybody's signed, and then it will tell you as soon as you've accepted it that you have a new tenant, and that's the button that you get there. Congratulations, you have a new tenant. So it's not just a tenant onboarding system. Go Tenant is also a kick-ass property management system as well. So it does all of the tenant onboarding, but it also does all of the property management that you would expect. So it will list all of your properties. It will list all of your rooms if you've got HMOs. It will upload all of the documentation you need. So whatever you want to put onto the system and attach it to the house, it will do that for you. So you can put anything on there. You can put your building reg certificates on there. You can put your architect's drawings on there, all of your receipts, etc. It can all go onto the system. And then it's also got a property maintenance platform built in. And that's a screenshot that you can see there. And you can see that there's 30 maintenance jobs in progress, none have been completed, and 30 are outstanding. So the tenant, when they check in, will be invited to their tenant app. When they click on the app, they've got full access to all of their documentation, so they can download their own AST contract. They don't have to contact you, and they can also report maintenance. So if there's an issue at their room, they will type in a maintenance issue, and they will add a photograph. They can upload it, and then they'll send it over to you. And then Go Tenant will tell you who it's come from, the address, the room number, and the issue, and it will log it onto the system. It will date stamp it, and it will time stamp it. So if you're ever tested, and if anyone ever says that you're not responding to maintenance issues, then you've got a full audit trail to say, actually, we are. And then you can update that sequentially as the job progresses. And every time you do an update, it will date stamp it, and it will time stamp it. So we've put all of that together as part of the property management side as well. Now, another element of this is that you can contact all of your tenants just with the click of a button. So you can choose one tenant, or you can choose the whole of your tenants in your portfolio. And for example, if you've got a routine inspection, you just type into all of the tenants, you've got a routine inspection, click the button, and all of those tenants then will be messaged from the system to say that there's a routine inspection that's coming up. So we've put it all together, and I don't think there's a lot that we've missed out. So Go Tenant was launched about 2 years ago to the public, and we had a year or so, or maybe a little bit less, 9 months of beta testing. So we've been live now for over 2 years, and we've probably helped about 2,000 landlords on the system to get their time back and to manage their portfolio in a more efficient way. And because Go Tenant is it's an ever-evolving full-time business, so there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's about 15 people that work on Go Tenant every day. So we've got a live help desk. So if you're not sure about anything at all, you'll click on the message button, and that will take you through directly to our help team. And our help team then can discuss it with you live. And we've got full-time coders that work on it every day. So when somebody asks us for something, then we will look at the viability of it, and then we'll add it to the system. For example, about 6 months into launch of Go Tenant, our community asked us if we could add a rent tracking facility. So we added a rent tracking facility. So now, when you get paid, all you have to do is check on the rent box, and then it will tell you how many people are in arrears, how many people have paid, how many people haven't paid, and you can send rent statements directly to your tenant. And then people were also asking for the additional facility to add guarantors to contracts. So we added the guarantors to the contracts. Lots of requests are coming in to facilitate different currency. So people would like the euro added so people outside of England can use. So we're looking at the feasibility of that at the moment. So everything you do with Go Tenant gives you a snapshot. So you can see here on the screen, You've got this snapshot on your desktop that tells you how many units you have to let, how many are vacant, how many are reserved, how many viewings you have coming up. Then you have a library document, and in the library document, it will tell you against each property who has uploaded AST contracts. You can download them all from the library. Excuse me a second. And then we've got the tenanting aspect. So if you see on the bottom screenshot, it will tell you that the tenants that are attached to the property, and there's a full note-taking facility on there. So if a tenant calls you or one of your team for any reason, and if it's not maintenance related, then you can add that to the note facility. So then if another member of your team accesses that tenant a couple of days later, you've got a sequential report of everything that has been discussed with that tenant prospect. So it's fantastic for everything. Now, not long ago, we were asked for multi-user access. So maintenance teams could access remotely. So some of our landlords actually operate portfolios all across the country. So they've got different maintenance people, not just one. And they wanted to know if their maintenance person could access Go Tenant, read the jobs for their area, and then go and action them. So we added that. So now we've got multi-user access, unlimited, and you can restrict the access of what you want people to see. So if you've got a property manager, you can give them whole access. If you've got somebody that's just doing viewings, you can give them just the viewing access. And if you have somebody that's just doing maintenance, you can give them the maintenance aspect as well. So we've kind of plugged every single gap. So how much is Go Tenant, folks? So, this is a killer. Now, this isn't a huge upsell. What I'm doing here is just explaining the importance of systems. And if you're going to use a system, then why not choose one like Go Tenant? Because it was built by us. We are landlords, so it's built by landlords for landlords. Now, the system is literally £1 a unit up to 85 units. So it's £1 a unit, folks. So for £20 a month, you get 20 HMO rooms or 20 single lets. And that's all we're charging. It's just literally £20 a month. Now, the price excludes VAT. There is VAT on top of that. We class a unit as a single HMO room. So if you want to have a look at Go Tenant, if you head over to www.gotenant.co.uk, and we will give you a 28-day free trial. You don't have to put a credit card in, and you also get a demo, a live demo. So you can go through the demo, and then you can check out the system, play around with it, and see if it's a fit for you. And if it is, awesome. If not, at least you've tried it. So that's the Go Tenant aspect, folks. Okay, so gotenant.co.uk. The next element is how we manage our portfolio. So I'm going to talk to you now for the next sort of 20 minutes or so on the problems that we've faced because of coronavirus from the coalface, and how we actually manage our portfolio ourselves during these times. So it was really tricky, wasn't it? So we got told that we were on lockdown, and then all of a sudden, everything stopped. Now I've got 150 HMO units. I've got a pub that's now closed, a holiday let that used to bring in £1,400 a week, 2 service accommodation units that I can't use. So my pub is closed, still is closed. Holiday unit shut, 2 service accommodation units closed, and 150 HMO tenants. So all of a sudden, we're like, wow, what do we do? What happens now? I don't really know. So it's all a little bit confusing when the Chancellor stood there and said, we're on lockdown, or the Prime Minister, and then the Chancellor stood there and said, what did he say? We're not going to evict tenants for 3 months. So we're going to give tenants a secure tenure for the next 3 months. Now, that's all good and well. But then that was read by our tenants and most of the tenants across the country that was a rent-free holiday. So the tenants then thought they had 3 months rent-free. So our phone, because we were working from home, the phones were diverted, didn't stop ringing. And we were taking about 10 calls a day at least from tenants saying, how do I access this 3-month tenant holiday rent thing? And we were like, there isn't one. But the Chancellor said that we can't evict you for 3 months, but it's not a rent holiday. So then they said, but you can take a 3-month mortgage holiday. And we were like, well, we could, but that comes with implications, or it will do, and we still have to pay it back. So there is no 3-month rent holiday. So I'm going to cover that a little bit more on how we progressed through that and got to the point where we had 100% rent roll last month. So at the moment, you might be in this journey somewhere. You might be worried about collecting rents. You might be worried about handling voids. If you are, folks, make some comments. You can shoot some questions over. I'm sure that Joshua's taking questions. But I think we're all experiencing some or all of this at the moment. You might be confused about the government guidelines, or your tenants might be confused about the government guidelines. You might be confused on whether to give advice to tenants and where to steer them to. And you might be confused about what's next. So what is next? Where do we go? Are we going to get through this? So what I'm going to do now is take you through our approach, okay? So our approach is talking and signposting, planning and flexibility, and then reviewing and then leverage with technology. Because we are in different times now. And I know I'm being cliched, you know, some of these phrases that we use are going to be written down in history, aren't they? Pivoting and unprecedented, and well, we are doing all of this because we have to survive. And what we have to do as business people and business operators is adapt, because if we don't adapt, we'll get swallowed up by the ones that do. And there's some great examples of that going over, you know, when we have these shifts. Kodak, for example, where's Kodak? Blockbuster Video, where are they now? Because they didn't adapt. So now, folks, we're going to have to start thinking about adapting, because a lot of what we do in the future is going to be online. Even when lockdown's off, we are going to be in an environment where people don't want to be in rooms together for a long period of time whilst we get to the point where we've got the confidence back. So this is our approach. So what does that mean? So in terms of collecting rents, it's all about communication. So it's about talking with your tenant, then agreeing to a plan, and then reviewing the plan, and then talking to your tenant again, and then going around the whole circle, because these things change. So have you spoken to your tenants yet? Now, I suspect you have. Now, I've conducted this seminar a few times over COVID-19, and I get some very mixed results back when I ask the question, have you actually spoken to your tenants yet? Now, some people have, but you'd be really surprised at the amount of people that they haven't, because they don't know what to say, or they don't know how to handle the situation. So the first thing that I'm going to implore all of you to do, if you haven't already, is communicate with your tenant and send them regular contact via email. So when all of this started to break, we, although we were taking a lot of calls in, we were also communicating out with our tenants. And as it broke, as it got bigger, and as it became real, we were changing those emails on a daily basis. So first of all, it was, have you any symptoms? Do you know anyone in the house that's got symptoms? Hope you're okay. Because everybody was still getting used to like all of this new stuff. And then it was, as the government guidelines came out, self-isolating and communal areas and all of the advice around communal bathrooms started to share. And I'm going to share that with you in a second. And then it was about the furlough scheme and the government scheme and the universal credit scheme and all of that. So it's ongoing. So folks, have you communicated with your tenants yet? Let me know. And if you haven't, now is the time to do it. Okay, it's really important. Now we've got to be really careful, because we've had, as much as everybody else, tenants trying not to pay. And very often, they're just using this as an excuse. In my experience, with the ones that I've spoken to, they're actually trying not to pay. I'll give you some examples here. So we've had tenants that have said, look, now because they're working at home, 2 of these we've had, the tenant can't work from home anymore because the Wi-Fi isn't quick enough. So they're going to surrender their contract 2 months in a 6-month fixed term because the Wi-Fi is not strong enough. One tenant said, I've got to leave to move out because the desk isn't big enough and I need to work from home. 3 months into a 6-month contract. And I'm saying, well, hang on a sec, you can't just do that. We've got a business to run. And they're saying, well, I've already moved out and I'm already committed on another property. Well, I'm sorry, but you shouldn't have committed yourself without talking to me first. So we've had all of that. And this sometimes will lead us to frustration, because there's nothing worse, is there, that you've put all of your love and energy and money into a project, and it's your house, it's your baby, and then you put a tenant in, and then you find that you're not going to get paid for the next 3 months or longer, because the government is not allowing us to evict for 3 months. So it's really important that you remain calm and professional, even though sometimes you don't want to, because if we start harassing our tenants, that might go against us then if we do go down the eviction route at some point in the future. So just remain calm and do things properly. I'm going to go through the eviction procedure with you in a second, and what you should do, but don't take the law into your own hands. And I know it's so tempting, especially now, because you know what? The government have said that you can't evict a tenant for 3 months, but they've made no accounting for violent tenants, tenants that are smoking drugs or selling drugs, tenants that are causing antisocial behaviour. Tenants, I've had a couple of students over the last week, actually I've had 2, they've approached me, separate people, saying, look, there's a tenant came home last night and smashed his room up and threw everything out of his window. How do I deal with it? Well, yes, you can call the police, you can claim criminal damage, but we can't evict the tenant, even though they've just ripped the house apart. There's nothing we can do for 3 months, and the government haven't given us anything that we can use for those kind of scenarios. And what's happened as well is now the courts have stopped doing evictions, and the warrant officers and bailiffs aren't doing evictions either. So we're stuck. So communication now is more important than ever before, because now we need to try and work things out with the tenant to the point we can serve notice, folks. We can still do that, but we can't evict. So what do we do with our tenants? So first of all, so when a tenant comes to us and they say, we can't pay or I can't pay, the first question is, why? So what has changed in your situation? Can you tell me what's changed, please? Because number one, if they've been furloughed, which means that they will get 80% of their salary, up to £2,500 a month, and it's up to the company whether they want to pay the 20% on top. If they've been furloughed, then they should effectively still be able to pay their rent up to 80%. Most will probably be able to pay all of it, and then other areas of their lifestyle they'll have to just tap those aside. So if they've been furloughed, they should be able to pay. If they've been laid off completely, then we'd signpost them to Universal Credit. Universal Credit might take a little while because they've got a massive backlog, but eventually you should get some, if not all, of your rent. Now, Universal Credit might not pay all of it. It depends on how much you charge, obviously. But in that instance, you should still get paid. So number one, furloughed, you should get paid. Number two, Universal Credit, you should get paid. Number three, if they're on housing benefit already, well, nothing's changed, has it? So you should still get paid. Now, the only other option for people that aren't paying are if they've literally left the property. So if you're a student landlord right now, I really feel for you, because most students have taken it upon themselves to go. And that's causing a huge amounts of problems. Now, I don't do students. All of my tenants are working professionals. But the only time we're not going to get paid really now is that if they just leave. Should we pursue them? If they leave, and if they're students, and if they go as a whole, and then that stops your income overnight, and yet they're still getting their bursary and their student loan, then effectively, yes, they still should pay. Because at the end of the day, we're in business, aren't we? And if you've got a whole portfolio of students that literally just up and leave, that's going to be catastrophic for some people. So they still should pay. So what we're doing is we're signposting. So the tenant calls, hi, I can't pay my rent. Why not? Because I've been furloughed. So you're still getting paid. All right, we might have to wait a little while. They should be getting the money this month from the government. So you still should get paid. Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Conversation closed. Hi, I can't pay my rent. Why not? Because I've been laid off. Have you claimed Universal Credit? Oh, no, I didn't know I had to. Signpost to Universal Credit. I'll call you back in a week. Let's see how you get on, etc. And that's what we're doing. So we are getting phone calls for people that are saying that just don't want to pay, and they're using it as an excuse. So that's our system so far, and how we're managing to make sure that we've got our rents. So you've got to make a plan with your tenant. There's no point in just having that call, whatever, okay, whatever. You've got to have a plan. What does that plan mean? Well, it's got to be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. So we have a SMART plan. And we use this in everything we do in business. So when we're planning, you've probably heard this before, it's SMART, S-M-A-R-T. So specific. So, okay, so we've agreed for you to get universal credit and you're going to pay us when you get universal credit. Yes, specific. Measurable. Okay, so how much are you going to pay us when you get universal credit? Well, I don't know yet, but I'll find out for you. And then we'll have another conversation in a week and I'll tell you how much it is. Measurable. And then is it achievable? Yes, achievable. Is it realistic? Yes, it's realistic. And then we need to put a timeline on it. So I'll call you back in a week or 2 weeks, and then we'll see where we are. And then we will go on and then potentially review it moving forward. So specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. So that's what we do with all of our, effectively, that's what we do every time we have, my headphones still working, folks? Can you still hear me? It's just saying, I've just had a note just to say that my sound is gone. Just let me just check that, folks. Just making sure that all good. Yeah, okay. Just had a note on my screen to say my sound had gone for some reason. Don't know why. Computers. So we make sure that we do that with all of our tenants, okay? So there's a few tips for you. So number one, make sure that you've got an open line of communication to your tenant. Number two, make sure that you are working to your plan, and it's got to be a SMART plan. And then make sure that you review the plan afterwards, okay? So you're constantly reviewing. I want to talk to you a little bit about evictions. So this is what we do. So let me go back a couple of slides. So when we're talking to the tenant, so good for HMO managers specifically, we take our rents on the 1st of the month. Now we take our rents on the 1st of the month because we only have to do our books effectively once. So we've got a big portfolio. We draw in about 50 grand a month in rent or thereabouts when we're full, and we're not full at the moment. And we always take the rent on the 1st of the month because it's effectively when we go into work by 10 o'clock, all the rent should be in. If not, then we'll go through the system. And then by 5 p.m., all of the outgoings would have been paid out. And whatever is left effectively should be ours. And that's really simple accounting. And what we do in properties like to keep things really, really simple. So if you don't do that, maybe it's something you can start doing. Even if the tenant gets paid on the 25th, on the 14th, whenever they get paid, we have to pro-rata the first month. So if they move in on the 15th, we'll take 15 days and then they'll pay again on the 1st. If they move in on the 20th, we'll take 10 days and then the whole of next month as well. So we've got some skin in the game. So what we do, folks, is once we've put this system in place, when we get to the office on the 1st of the month, it's my job. I do this, and I'm quite privileged to be able to do this because I don't do a lot in my portfolio these days. I check all of the rents, and Go Tenant will tell me who's paid, who hasn't paid, and it will collate a list of non-payers. So that's a very small list. So let's say it's 10% of the main portfolio. What will happen then with that 10%, I will email that list to my property manager. My property manager then will text each tenant individually and say, we've not had your rent yet, can you please check? Now, most of the time, that will make most people pay or prompt them to pay. And then we've got another smaller list that comes from the back of that. So let's say 80% of that list pays, and we've got another 20% left. So what will happen is by 12 o'clock lunchtime, if that small list still hasn't paid, then I call them myself. And it'll be a nice call, and it'll be, hi, it's Rick, I haven't paid, is everything okay? And then hopefully that will prompt most people to pay. Now by about 4 o'clock, if we still haven't got rents from some of the tenants, then that will prompt another call from me. And that call will be, you're going to go into arrears now. It's really important that you look into this for me. I know it might be an oversight, but if we don't have the rent overnight, then we are going to come out and visit the property and conduct viewing. Because then what we need to do is make sure that the tenant is still there or they're safe and well. So we're going to give them 24 hours notice. So then we go home and we come back the next day, we check the bank balance. If they're paid, everything stops. If they still haven't paid, then it will be another phone call, a final call, and it will be, right, we are going to send you a final demand, but we are giving you notice that we're coming out to conduct a viewing, an inspection. So then we'll wait for the day, and then the next day, because we've got to give 24 hours notice, we'll go and we'll conduct an inspection. And when we get there, there's going to be, if you think of this as a bit of a graph, there's going to be lots of different scenarios here. First of all, we're going to go into the room. Now, it's the best scenario if the tenant's there, because we can talk to them. And very often, they're just shied away because they didn't know how to deal with the situation. And that's where we can go into the negotiations. Why haven't you paid your rent? Because X, Y, and Z. Okay, let's talk about it. Let's come up with a plan. Let's use the SMART plan, and then we can make sure that we stick to that and help you get back on track. So that's the best scenario. Some of the other scenarios are a little bit trickier, because we could go into the property and find that the tenant's not there, but they're very obviously still living there. So then we've got a problem. Or they're not there and it's not obvious if they're still living there. It's an even bigger problem. Or they're not there and it's obvious that they're not living there. So all of these different scenarios we have to face with as landlords. Bear with me. Excuse me. So how do we deal with all of these? Well, the first thing is, folks, we've got to do things properly. We've got to do things properly. So scenario one, tenant's there, we've gone down the SMART route and we've discussed the plan, we're happy. So we're going to leave them to it. Scenario number two, we get there, the tenant's not there, but their belongings are, and they're very obviously still in occupation. What do we do then? Well, let's just tap COVID aside for 1 minute. What we would do then is that, obviously they're not there, we don't need to do anything else. We go back to the office and we send them a final demand letter to say, you're still in occupation, we conducted our viewing as per our letter and instructions, we haven't received any rent, you're now in arrears of X, and we will be pursuing you for the outstanding rent if it's not paid by the end of the week, if you like. So that's another SMART. So it's specific. You're in arrears. It's measurable by how much. Is it achievable? Well, it's achievable in terms of we will pursue them. Is it realistic? Yeah, it has to be realistic. And it's time bound because we've told them by Friday. And then on Friday, if we haven't received their rent again, we're going to call their guarantor, if they've got one, and we're going to have the same conversation. If they haven't got a guarantor, now this potentially would then start us thinking about eviction proceedings. But there's a couple of things you need to know here. Hope I'm not going too fast, folks. But you need to know this. This is really important. There's a couple of things you need to know. Section 8, we can't do evictions right now. I know we can't. But let's just say we're not in COVID right now. For Section 8, for arrears, they need to be 2 months in arrears. So effectively, if they pay a month in advance and they haven't paid, when the first of the month comes around again, and if they don't pay, they're now 2 months in arrears. So you can serve them Section 8, give them 2 weeks notice, and hopefully they'll leave. If they don't leave, then you have to go to court for a possession order. And we know how that works. Now, how do we get our money? Well, there's two ways you can get your money. You can go to court and claim it back at court, or you can go through Money Claim Online. And Money Claim Online is effectively the same thing, only you do it from your desktop, and it's a really simple process. Now, the thing is, you can't do both. So you can't claim on Money Claim Online and try and claim the rent back at court, because it's like having 2 bites of the cherry. So pick one, and don't think you can do both, okay? Because you can't. So that's the next element. So that's scenario number 2. So we've done scenario number 1, tenant's there. Scenario number 2, tenant isn't there, but they're in occupation. So we've gone down the eviction route. And then scenario number 3 is tenant's not there, and you're not sure whether the property is occupied still or not. Now, this is really difficult. And this is where a lot of people get unstuck, because they might have left a few belongings. There's no key, there's no letter of surrender. And you're then saying, well, they've obviously gone, so I'm just going to re-let the room. And that's the most, what's the word I'm looking for? That's probably the most appealing way that you could go down as a business owner. So you're going to go through and you're going to say, right, I'm going to let the room again, and you put it on spare room, and you let the room, and everything's fine. And then a week later, you get at the door, and you open the door, and your old tenant's there. And you say, why can't I get back into my room? I haven't left. Well, hang on, I thought you'd abandoned the room because it didn't look like you were living there. I've been in prison. Oh. Now that's a real scenario. And that landlord, in fact, it was a landlady. I say landlord because that's the definition we use. So forgive me, I'm not being sexist. But that landlady was fined £10,000, £10,000 for unlawful eviction. And this is where it's real, folks. Now that's just one story. Because of my Facebook, if you're in my Facebook group, folks, HMO Property Community Group, 17,000 landlords in there, real active landlords. And these are the stories that I pick from there. So these are real stories. Now that's happened loads of times since I've been running that group for the last 5 years or so. So don't be tempted to do that. What do you do in a case like that? There are two things you can do. I hope I'm not going too quickly for you, folks. I get really passionate about property legislation. You probably realise that. Two things you can do here. Number one, go for a possession order through the courts. Or number two, and you've got to be really, really careful with this, is abandonment. And you can serve an abandonment notice, but you've got to be really careful. So go online and research abandonment and the Tort Act, T-O-R-T, Tort, I think, might be have an E on it, or is that the pudding? There's one of the two. Because if they've got belongings and you're taking possession of them, there are legal responsibilities you have to go through. You have to serve notice. There's no time definition in that, but you do have to serve notice, and you have to make sure you do it properly. Otherwise, it's unlawful eviction. Breathe. Okay. What scenario is that? Last one. The last scenario. Is this useful, by the way? Hope it is. The last scenario for you. It's obvious that the tenant's gone, and it's really obvious. So there's nothing left in the room, and they've left their keys, but they haven't surrendered their contract. There's no letter anywhere. Now, strictly speaking, you should go down the possession route again, because then you know you can sleep at night, and you know it's going to take a couple of months, but you know you've done it properly. Or you could go down the abandonment route, provided you are beyond reasonable doubt that that property has been abandoned 100%. Because they've taken everything, there's nothing left, and the keys are there. But you have to make that call. So, wow, I've just given you a whistle-stop tour on how we deal with arrears and evictions. Now, having said all of that, right? Now, having said all of that, we're in COVID-19 territory, and we can't do any of that now. Can't do that now. What we can do, folks, is we can still serve notice, but it's got to be 3 months. So with a tenant that's on an AST, if you're going to serve Section 21, which was supposed to be repealed this year, I suspect now it's going to stay a bit longer. I don't know, but I think the government have got bigger things to worry about. So good for us. If you contract at an AST, you can serve Section 21 at month 4, giving 2 months notice. Now you have to give 3. Section 8, we could give 2 weeks notice. Now you've got to give 3 months, all right? So that's where we are with that, folks. Hope that's okay. Just bear with me a second. Okay, cool. Right, so moving forward, that's how we deal with arrears. I hope that was useful. And fundamentally, this is really about getting those systems in place, because we can do pretty much most of this all remotely by using the right systems. We can give advice to our tenants, not really advice, but we can give signposting for our tenants. Now, this is common knowledge, you know, the way that we deal with our tenants right now is it's just practical advice. If you've got symptoms, self-isolate. If you're in the communal areas, make sure there's only one person in the kitchen at a time. Make sure in the bathrooms they're clean and tidy. Sanitary products are taken away, they're put in bags, they're left outside, etc. Now, I've only got a couple of minutes left, folks, but we are getting quite a lot of tenants at the moment that are asking us if they can bring partners in. And they can't. Now, I get so passionate about this. I know I've only got 5 minutes left, right? But you've got to know this. I had a conversation yesterday, and it's happening all the time in my Facebook groups, about voids right now. I know it's hard. I know it's tough. I know it's hard. I've got 14 voids, and I've got 4 flats that are empty, and I've got a whole project that I can't tenant with another 12 rooms in. So you can imagine how much pain that's causing me. But the government guidelines are very specific. Now, they're only guidelines. I know it's not legislation, but the guidelines are not to do any more move-ins unless you are contractually obliged or unless it's for key workers. So you have to run your business the way you see fit. For us at the moment, we are going and we abide by those guidelines, because the quicker we can fix the country, the quicker we can get back out there, and the quicker we can start our businesses rolling again. It's going to be an interesting time for the private rental sector moving out of this. I can't talk about the economy now. I haven't got enough time, but I think, well, I know we're going to go into recession, but because people aren't going to be able to afford property as much as they could before off the back of this, then HMOs, single-let properties, are going to be very solid moving forwards, in my predictions. I could talk to you all day about the economy and what I think, but they are only my thoughts, you know. So what we're doing at the moment, our adverts say key workers only. We're doing WhatsApp viewings with the tenants in the house showing on WhatsApp or FaceTime. We're putting break clauses in because we're not doing face-to-face viewings for key workers only. We're doing remote viewings with a break clause that says if they're not happy moving forwards, we will simply release them from their contract and we'll give them their money back. And then, of course, we're doing self-check-ins. Self-check-ins, they do come with an issue because we've got something called the Deregulation Act that tells us that when we have to check a tenant in, we have to check the fire alarms to make sure they're working. If we don't do that, we can't evict under Section 21. We can't evict under Section 21 at the moment anyway. We've got to be pragmatic. We've got to make sure that we're operating our business the best possible way. Folks, I hope that was helpful. I've got an offer for you now. It's a very quick offer. I'm not going to bang the drum too much on this. This is a brand new VIP offer. I've only just launched this, okay? The launch for this, folks, is it's VIP mentoring from me, okay? VIP mentoring from me in the form of online. So it's going to be in it is in a Facebook forum and on my website. So it's pay as you go. I'm including the HMO Quick Start program. So if you're interested in HMOs, you can check that out. I'm including my serviced accommodation Quick Start program. I'm doing a live weekly mastermind for my students. I'm conducting daily mentoring in the group every single day, and I'm charging less than £1 a day for this, folks. Pay as you go. So this is £29 a month. I'm really kind of doing things very differently here. £29 a month, pay as you go, cancel any time, to have me as your mentor in your pocket, on your phone, in your pocket, all day, every day. So I'm providing massive value for that. Literally, it's pay as you go, folks. You've got everything to gain and absolutely nothing to lose. If you're interested in that, you have to head along to www.rickgannon.com/RickVIP. I don't know if Joshua can type that somewhere for me. So it's www.rickgannon.com/RickVIP. £1 a day, folks, and I can help you move forward in your journey. I'm done. Thank you for listening.
Perfect. That was great. Yeah, kind of real whistle stop tour there. Didn't really have too long in terms of time. It's so easy, it's so difficult to try and fit as much value and content into such a small slot. We've shared that link. So www.rickgannon.com/RickVIP.
Yeah, Rick Gannon with a C, so RickGannon for November, ON.com/RickVIP. £1 a day.
Perfect.
Can't get better than that.
Yeah, we're going to share that everywhere. Yeah, thank you very much for your time. You know, people have been amazing feedback, especially on the feeds there. You answered the questions. It's been really great having you. Thank you very much.
No problem. Welcome. Take care. Have a great day.
You too. See ya.
Bye.